CES 2021 is finally over, so join me today as I answer some of the questions that you guys have been asking me over the past week about the stuff I've been showing off. And I'll also be telling you what I think is the best piece of technology shown at CES and awarding that company the prestigious STU'S Reviews Golden Whisky Award, which I definitely didn't just make up. Welcome back to another episode of STU'S Reviews. First things first, if you haven't seen my coverage of day 1, 2 and 3 of CES, go and take a look at those videos first, because I go through all the announcements basically that the main companies have done, take a look at some of the top tech that I've found and some of the weirder tech that we've seen as well. So go and check out those. I'll leave a link to those in the description below for you. I was originally planning on doing another day of just coverage of CES 2021, but unfortunately there weren't that many announcements on day 4, so we brought everything forward and today I'm going to be answering your questions. The first question is from King Arthur Pendragon himself, the legendary King Arthur, Sword in the Stone. He's asked me to take a look at Ring products and any kind of smart home tech that I've liked at CES 2021. Well, to be honest, there hasn't really been a lot of smart home tech announced at CES 21, obviously because of the scenario and the fact it's all digital. The thing that really caught my eye, or the smart home tech that really did catch my eye, was Samsung's JetBot AI 90 Plus, or whatever the ridiculous name they've decided to call it, because that seems to incorporate a lot of things like AI and automatic control of your smart home by a robot that can go around cleaning your house at the same time. So I am quite excited to see that, and it is something that's coming as well. They've said it's going to be available in the first half of this year, so let's stay tuned for that. I'd love to see what happens when that comes out. Next up, we had a wish from Zach Abdi and a couple of others asking me to take a look at any smart glasses that were available at CES 2021, and again, unfortunately to disappoint, there's not been that many. I think a lot of companies have decided to forego mentioning any smart glasses because this is something that really, to get that big wow factor, you have to see with your own eyes. Literally, I mean, they're glasses. So I think that the next CES that's in person, that's in physical presence, we're going to see a massive domination of smart glasses, because I do think that's going to be the next big tech. But that doesn't mean that there was nothing. There was a couple of companies that stood out. The first was by a company called ActiveLock, whose HUD has been implemented in the Julbo EVAD 1 Sports sunglasses. Now, these are active sunglasses that basically connect to your phone, and I think they also connect to your smart wearables as well, but they can display your active information, such as the distance you've cycled or your heart rate during the entire activity. Now, this is really, really cool, because let's say you are cycling and you do want to check how your heart rate's going and the distance you've gone. Rather than having to raise your watch up to check that, or even look at your dashboard, maybe you've got something on the front of your handlebars, instead you can just have a look and it's there in your glasses, that information. So this is what caught my eye the most when it came to smart glasses. I think the biggest disappointment was TCL's smart glasses. A lot of people thought they were going to be AR, but unfortunately they're not, and they're just VR to an extent. I mean, they're not even proper VR, because when you put them on, all you see is a great screen in front of you, very much like a television. So it really wasn't that impressive. I mean, this sort of technology we've seen before. Whether or not they implement it in a better way, that's to be seen. But I think a lot of people wanted some kind of AR solution from TCL rather than VR. There was something else shown off by a company called Vuzix, although I think they tend to aim their stuff more at B2B and industry rather than consumers. But what they showed off could have consumer applications. My problem with the ones they showed off, however, is it seemed to just pack so much in. It had a camera, it had a display, microphones, speakers, gesture control, sensors, all this nonsense like that. It just feels to me like these companies coming up with some augmented reality smart glasses are trying to put too much into their products. And what's happening is these things are coming out bulky, uncomfortable, not really that adaptive. I mean, look at the Bose sunglasses, for example, that I took a look at a few months ago. Those only had a speaker in, but they were really, really bulky and quite uncomfortable, really. I just think that these companies are running before they can walk, and I would be happy with a slim pair of glasses that had a display in them. that simply just showed my notifications, who's calling, what's going on, maybe some map directions when it's connected to my phone. I don't need it to have a microphone, a speaker, gesture control, all that nonsense like that. I mean, of course, those things are handy, and they'd be great to have implemented at a later date when they can figure out a way to make it smaller. But right now, too much in too little, in my opinion. Next, we've got a question from Jack Livermore. You've asked me specifically to take a look at a few different products. I'm going to get a list up here. You asked me to take a look at the Dell Latitude, the HP Elite Folio, and the Lenovo ThinkPad X12. Well, here's a bit of an interesting one for you. I've had a look at the exhibitors pages for all of those. First of all, the Lenovo ThinkPad, there wasn't that much information available. In fact, there was next to no information available, so I don't know where the information is coming from in the first place, but there was nothing on the exhibitor pages that I could see. Next, I had a look at the Dell page, which doesn't seem to exist. They've apparently announced a bunch of stuff at CES, but it seems to only be through keynote addresses, not through any form of exhibitor booth. So I can't do any contacting, I can't do any viewing of any kind of information they've posted that they normally have, like press releases and stuff. None of that information is there, so I can't look at the Dell. When it comes to the HP, there is literally one page of information that constitutes about 4 different graphics. There's hardly any information out there at the moment, so I can't really make comment on any of those, unfortunately. And normally at CES you'd be able to have a chat with the company and ask them a few pieces of information about it. It's not really that possible doing it digitally. I mean, I can email them, and I have done. I've reached out a couple of times, but they don't really seem to be getting back. Obviously, they've got a lot of people emailing them at the moment, so maybe I'll get an answer, and if I do, I might update you, but at the moment, I can't give you any more information that's already out there, I'm afraid. We've got a bit of a meaty question now from James Lancy, who asked about the differences between micro LED, mini LED, OLED, LED. What are the differences? Why are there so many different pieces of tech, and what does it all mean? Well, this is a ridiculously meaty question that seriously it would take me about half an hour to explain everything. So I'm going to try and condense this down in as little and as simple way as possible. And the easiest way to do it is look at the terminology that you should know. Forget a lot of it, because most of it is just different manufacturers calling the same technology different things to make you think they've got something that other people haven't. So the core terms that you should know are LED, full array LED, OLED, micro LED, and mini LED. They're the 5 terms that really you should be knowing when it comes to LED technology. I want to start by talking about LED. Now, there are 2 types of LED. There's edge-lit LED and full array LED. Edge-lit LED is the cheapest possible one out of all of these, and it gives a nice even picture but not that contrasty, and it's edge-lit, which means that on a square of a television you'll get an LED strip at the top and the sides, maybe the bottom, and that will light the entire panel up. Full array LED is slightly different in the sense that instead of being edge lit, it's backlit. So you have a full panel of LEDs shining out at you, lighting up the display. Now what this means is it's much, much brighter. But it's quite an interesting technology, because what can happen is they can shut certain panels of these LEDs off in blocks to allow for a greater contrast. So for example, let's imagine now you've got on the television, half of it is white and half of it is black. They will shut off this half of the LEDs and keep this half on. And that means that you're getting a much greater contrast than the edge lit, which cannot be turned off. This is always edge lit, so the blacks aren't truly black. The limitation with full array is that resolution of contrast isn't that high, because these blocks are relatively big. You're not going to get true blacks everywhere in the picture, but it certainly does a good job, and it is more economical than the next level up, which is OLED. Now the difference between OLED and full array LED, and LED for that matter, is that each individual pixel is individually lit. So rather than being backlit, like by a big panel with blocks that can turn off, or lit by bars on the top and the bottom, each individual can turn on and off at will. Now this means you're going to get true blacks across everything. But the downside of OLED is that it does degrade over time, and it does suffer from screen burn. So if you're using OLED technology on, say, something like a computer monitor where you might have the dark or the start menu always there, over time that can burn into the screen. And like I said, with the degradation of the actual display itself, the light fades and it becomes less bright over time. So actually, OLED is great technology and you're getting some fantastic contrast over the board that makes things look really sharp and pop. It does have some downsides to it. Now, onto the two new terms, mini LED and micro LED. And you'd think these would be the same thing, but they're not. The first is mini LED. Now, the difference between mini LED is it brings it back to the full array LED that I was speaking about earlier. Now, the full array LED is these kind of bigger blocks of panels of LEDs that can turn on and off. Mini LED is exactly what it says in the name. It's exactly the same, except those LEDs have been shrunk down, the panels are even smaller, so you can get even smaller localized clusters, which means that the contrast can be even greater and it can pinpoint out certain areas that are true black. So that tends to be a much better technology than anything we've seen so far, and if anything, that's the technology that I would personally go for. Micro LED, on the other hand, is a little bit different because it's individually lit pixels, again, rather than being panel, but it is LEDs shrunk down to a microscopic level, hence the name micro LED. Now this in theory is far better than OLED because it doesn't use any organic material in the actual making of the panel, which means that you're not going to get that degradation of quality over time and you aren't going to get that screen burn. Possibly. This is sort of brand new technology and we don't really know much more than what I'm telling you, and all these new micro LED panels coming out, they could be absolutely naff over time, who knows, but let us wait and see. But I believe it'll be a little while yet before we find micro LED affordable and in the hands of consumers. You're much more likely to get OLED and mini LED much cheaper sooner. So stay tuned on that. I'm interested to see more, but I'm hoping that sort of explained the difference between all of the LEDs. I mean, I've never said LED as much as I have done in the past couple of minutes of explaining that, but that's enough of that. Next, we've got two questions from one of my patrons, Timer the Cheese Guy. You've asked me to take a look at the crazy concept vehicles. Well, this year, there haven't really been that many, and I did slate the GM flying taxi car in, I think it was day 3's episode, because that was just ridiculous.
As a passenger, it represents personal space and a panoramic view of the world passing beneath you.
Come on! In a way, I love these crazy concept vehicles if they can prove they work, if they have a working version. Anyway, you've also asked me to take a look at the arcade OneUp machines. Now, interestingly, they were supposed to be exhibiting something at CES, but they haven't done. There's no exhibitor booth. I've searched for it, and nothing is coming up, which is a bit strange. But this is the first time I've actually seen the OneUp machines, and my god, I'm really interested in getting one myself. I didn't know they exist, so thank you very much for pointing me out to those. I kind of want the Dragon's Lair one, but I don't know if my wife would accept coming home and finding that in the corner of the living room. But then again, if she did say anything, that is what the duct tape is for. Only joking, I do need to put in application in writing 6 months in advance if I so much as want to buy a sock. So hopefully she's not watching this. Please don't watch this. Please don't get the belt out again. Anyway, we've got another question here from Gordon Kinghorn about vacuum cleaners for teeny tiny apartments that don't break the bank. Well, again, like I said, there's not been that much in terms of smart tech this year. They did have the JetBot AI 90 Plus or whatever it was called, which is going to be cool, but I can foresee that being £800 upwards quite easily. I mean, the nearest competitor would be the Dyson, which is sort of a high-end one, and that's about 800 quid, and that features next to no form of AI smart home control. So how much this thing is going to be, I don't know. It is coming soon, so we'll certainly find out. But if you're looking for something cheap on that end of things, I would recommend maybe looking at the Ecovacs D-Bot range. I currently use the Osmo and it works surprisingly well considering I have dogs that shed hair everywhere. It does a really good job at picking it up. It is a more expensive option, that one, but they do offer a few that are about £200. So if they perform anywhere near as good as the Osmo, then definitely have a look at Ecovacs D-Bot vacuums. But like I said, I've only tried the Osmo myself. Alex Monroe, Grieger and Sean O'Boyle, you've asked me, are there any products from Amazon, LifeX or Google? Unfortunately not. None of those exhibited this year. I know Google are normally at the forefront of CES as well, but they've chosen not to exhibit this year, basically because of the fact it's all digital. Amazon as well, they tend to have their own sort of events around September time to announce bigger stuff. And LifeX, they did announce some stuff last year at CES 2020, but this year, nothing. Next up, a few of you have asked me about the Yeelight and if you can buy it in the UK. Now that was a pretty cool product I showed in episode 2 that projects light from a light bar behind your monitor as a form of bias lighting that connects through Razer Chroma and Overwolf to extend your desktop by lighting, which is pretty cool. Now, unfortunately at the moment, you can't buy it anywhere from a UK stockist as far as I can find. I've done a bit of Google, I've done a bit of research and can't seem to find anything. But I'm not surprised because Yeelight is it's a Chinese company that predominantly makes the cheaper Chinese tech that I love to cover quite often. Now, we won't really see this by a UK stockist for some time until someone like an Amazon seller or an eBay seller decides to import a boatload of them and start selling them directly from Amazon. I don't think we will see it. And it's a new product, so that won't be for a little while. It is, however, on Banggood. Now, I have ordered things such as 3D printers and smartwatches from Banggood before, so they are reputable, and the stuff does arrive after about 4 to 6 weeks of shipping because it comes directly from China. The problem here is that now Brexit has happened, we're probably going to see some really large custom fees slapped on to any product you're ordering from China because usually it comes via Europe, Germany usually. So should you wait until UK stock is? Well, it's up to you. If you order from Banggood, I'm pretty certain it'll be fine, but if you don't want those extra customs fees, then maybe wait until they're in the UK. But like I said, you'll have to wait for someone to buy a boatload of them to be stocking them in the UK. Lastly, I had a bunch of you criticise my cup of tea that I made in episode 1. We had John Hedges say, "What in Christ's name did you do with that tea?" We had Adam McCarty say, "Not enough milk in that tea." And we had Marianne Sousley saying, "I was wondering if that could be a coffee sachet." Well, I'm northern, right? So making a cup of tea is like my speciality. Nobody else can have an opinion or authority on cups of tea. I am from the north of England, northwest in fact, and the northwest, tea is literally Lancashire. Tea is our thing. You can't tell me that tea was wrong because that tea was how tea should be. If it had any more milk in it, I might as well be drinking milk straight from the cow. You're wrong, and I'm right. And I had one other comment, actually. Hold on a minute. I had a comment from Mr. Uber Steve, and I'm going to call you out here. You said that I don't wash my teacups properly. Yes, it did look like that teacup was slightly dirty, and I do apologise for that. But throughout the day, I used the same cup because I have a dishwasher, and there's only a certain amount of space. So I don't mind using the same cup to drink 3 or 4 cups of tea. And what you saw there was at the end of a very long day, researching stuff for your pleasure at CES to give you these wonderful videos that you've been enjoying so much. So Steve, stop being the washing police. In fact, hold on a minute. I think this might even be the same cup that I've been using all day. There you are, look. Same cup. Look at that. A bit cleaner, you see? That's because I've only used this once or twice today. Bloody judgmental Steve. So hopefully that answers some of the questions that you guys had. I know I've not answered everything. That's because we've not got loads of time to answer everything. But I've been through some of the questions that kept on repeating themselves over and over again. And hopefully you found that useful. Next year I might be able to answer a bit more because hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be there in physical person to ask these questions at the booths that you might have. So fingers crossed, touch wood, let's see where we are next year. But now it's time to give that prestigious, what did I call it? Golden Whiskey Bottle Award, which is prestigious and renowned worldwide. But my best of show this year has to go to Samsung. I know, I'd normally like to give this to a smaller creator, but Samsung really wowed me this year with their Bot Handy Robot. I mean, look, this thing is insane. It wasn't just a concept. They appeared to have a fully working version of this thing that can stack my dishwasher, pour my wine, hand me a glass of water. This thing is incredible. And although it was a concept, a working one, We won't probably see this in our homes for quite a few years, but I am really excited to see if we do get it. Honestly, I'm so excited for Bot Handy. It has hyped me up to no end. I definitely think we're going to start seeing things like this within the next decade for definite, because this thing, they've got a working prototype. It seemed to be working perfectly. My God, I hope you bring Bot Handy to CES next year, because I cannot wait to meet it. But that wins the prestigious STU'S Reviews Golden Whisky Award. So round of applause there for Bot Handy and Samsung. But that concludes my CES coverage this year. I can finally get out of this room and go for a sleep. Finally, but I hope you've enjoyed my coverage, and if you've got any feedback for me, did you like it? Did you not like it? Is there something you'd like to see next year? Just tell me. Let me know what you thought of my CES coverage in the comments below, and I will take whatever you say on board, and I will listen to you so I adapt next year and change and add and do it again if you liked it all. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for joining. If you did enjoy today's video, hit that like and that subscribe and notification bell if you're new. But other than that, guys, I'll see you back for another episode of STU'S Reviews soon.